Okay guys, I got here a 2007 ZX6R. What I'm going to be doing today is flushing out the coolant system and putting in some new coolant. What you're going to need for this, really, you just need an 8mm wrench and a 10mm wrench, a little drain pan, and rear stand makes it a lot easier. But you'll also need, here I have my new coolant that I'm going to put in, engine ice. Really like that stuff. And we're going to flush the system a couple times before we put the new coolant in, and to do that just need some good old distilled water. I currently have engine ice already in there, so I'm only going to need to flush it maybe 1 to 2 times. If you have some other kind of coolant and you're switching to a new brand, you'll probably definitely want to flush it 3 and then in some cases 4 times. What that'll do, that'll completely remove the old coolant from the system before you put the new stuff in there. Sometimes if you mix multiple coolants together, it can start to combust or corrode, and it'll make like a thick paste in your system and clog it up. So you're not going to want to do that. Also, I always remove the pharynx from both sides. It adds a little time up front, but it makes life a lot easier while you're doing this. So pharynx removed from both sides, and let's get to it. This is your reservoir. You'll want to drain this each time. It'll just flush it out of here. To do that, there's one hose here. So that'll drain the reservoir. Now the main drain plug for the coolant system, so you're here, you have your kickstand right up under here. You can see there's 2 bolts, one at about 7 o'clock, one at about 2 o'clock. The one at about 2 o'clock, in my case, it's actually a black bolt rather than a chrome one. This is the main drain for the block here. So this is your main drain plug. There's also one additional drain plug that's up higher for the block as well. Here's your headers. Just back behind them, you can see this 10mm bolt here. So this is a secondary drain plug. So those are the 3 guys you'll be working with. Main drain plug down here, secondary plug up here right behind your headers, and then finally the reservoir plug. So what you're going to do for the first time here, just go ahead and remove those guys and drain out all your coolant that's currently in your system, and then we'll replace it and fill it up with distilled water. One other thing to note before you start pulling those plugs, go over to the other side, and right up here on the top side of the radiator where this hose comes down, this is the fill cap. So you'll turn it, it'll kind of like stop, you think it's off, but you actually got to push down one more time and turn it all the way around, and then it'll come right off. Well, if I had the right hand, there it is. So go ahead and open that up before you pull the plugs. It'll what that'll do, it'll release the air pressure in there. Otherwise it just has pressure backed up and it'll try to gurgle and go real slow. So now that those guys are out, I'm going to go ahead and pull these plugs real quick. You can do one at a time, or if your pan's big enough you can do multiple or all 3. The one on the side actually shoots out pretty far, so I normally do him first by himself. One other thing to note, I didn't mention the secondary drain plug up under here. He's a tricky little bastard to get to. I find I have one of these curved wrenches that he fits up in there. It's 10mm. He fits up in there really good and has room to work around. Standard socket kind of hits this guy for me. I can't remember what the stock ones look like, if that was in the way. You might have a little more room on the stock headers. I don't recall, but either way, he's a tricky little bitch with this hose in the way, especially. Getting him off is a little easier than putting him back in there. I find it easier, in order to give my hand some more room, I'll actually take these 2 top bolts of this reservoir off, and I can just swivel him down. That gives me a little more room to get in there and get him started. So that's just a note if you have big hands as well. Alright, there we go. Main plug's removed. I got some rags here to kind of help it keep from splashing all over the place. And you can see I've already flushed mine once, so mainly just distilled water's coming out. But for your first time, yours will probably be whatever color your coolant happens to be, green, or if you got engine ice, purple. But I'll go ahead and let that guy finish draining out, then I'll do the other 2. And once it stops, it stops. It doesn't take very long. Secondary bolt popped out. You can see him draining away there. I'll also, while I'm at it, pull this off of the coolant reservoir. For the main plug, I already finished up with him. Don't forget to put the bolt back in. And again, these don't take too long. Just be careful because it's, especially if you just ran it, it's really hot up in there. You can see it's still flushing itself out here. Now again, for you, the first time you do the coolant, there will be coolant coming out of these. And then you're just going to, after you have all these drained out, put the plugs back in, bolts, refill it with distilled water. And then once you got the distilled water in there, you're actually going to start the bike and run it 5-10 minutes, let it get up to temperature. You can let it get up to like 180, 200, or if you want the fan to kick on, then you'll know it's definitely up to temp. Just let it run. That'll flush the water throughout the system. Then you're going to turn it off, let it cool, and repeat the process. I would go ahead and keep repeating, filling it up with water and draining it. Just keep repeating until you don't see any more remnants of coolant coming out. If it's just perfectly clear like distilled water, then you know you flushed it out pretty good. Then you can go ahead and stop, bolt everything back up, and fill it with coolant. So that is basically the procedure. I'm going to put all these bolts back in and continue on.